Welcome to part 2 of installing and configuring VMware View 5. I'm going to jump straight in by logging into my View admin page. I'll be logging in with administrator, my password. Okay, and the first thing you want to do when you log into the admin page is enter in your license information. So I'm just going to click edit here, and in here enter in your license. So what you can do is you can sign up for an evaluation copy on vmware.com website, and in there they'll email you a license key and you can post that license key into here. And now your license is being entered. You'll get your license information there at the top of the screen. So now our next step is to go and register our vCenter server. So I'm going to click on servers here, and I'm going to click add at the top of the screen here. Okay, I'm going to enter in my vCenter server address, which is server-vc1.primarysite.local. My username, administrator, and my password. And you can give a description if you like. I'm just going to give primary vCenter server. And for now, let's not click enable view composer. We'll come back in and do that, but let's click OK. Alright, so our vCenter server has been registered, and we can see that here. So let's just click on edit, and now what we'll do is we'll click enable view composer, and under domains we'll click add, and our domain will be primarysite.local, and I'll be using an account that has domain admin access, which is administrator obviously. We'll click OK. And that's all been entered in successfully. We'll click OK again. Okay, and looks like we are good to go. We won't be configuring any security servers. This will be our only View server. And we also won't be configuring any transfer server because we won't be configuring this to be used offline, or for the virtual machine to be used offline. Now, one other thing that is optional, but I highly recommend that you do it, is going into event configuration and just setting up an SQL database for the events from VMware View. And if I just click on edit, I've previously set up a SQL database called VMware View Events. And if you're just joining me in this part 2 of the video, I won't be running through setting up the SQL database. I highly recommend that you go to my part 1, and in there I've run through step by step in setting up the SQL database for View, and you can follow that exact same process. So I'm just going to enter in my information here. My SQL server is called server-SQL. The database type is Microsoft SQL. The database name is VMware View Events. I've created an SQL local user within SQL Server, so that user is called VM Events. Put my password and confirm it. And the prefix for the events I want to use is VE underscore for View Events. So let's click OK. Alright, so I've got all my information configured here for my SQL database for events. Okay, so now before we create our pool, what I'm going to do is just jump into the Windows 7 base machine, what I've created here in vCenter. And as you can see, I've already copied the View 5 agent to the desktop here. So we need to install this on our workstation. So I'm just going to double click on that. Click on run. Click next. Next. Accept the license agreement, and we'll click next. Now I'm going to leave these as default. I don't have any PC over IP smart cards, so that's fine to leave that off. But all the others I'll probably want to use, so we'll leave that, and let's click next. And we'll enable the remote desktop capability on this computer as well. So we have the choice to use RDP or PC over IP. I'll click next and install. Beautiful, so our agent has finished installing, so I'll click finish and let's restart our PC. And I'm going to be removing the View Agent installer. And lastly, going to be releasing my IP address. And now let's shut down our workstation. And what we're going to be doing is creating a snapshot, and with that snapshot we'll be creating linked clones. So our Windows 7 machine has been shut down. Now I'm going to go to the VM menu and just take a snapshot, and let's just name it base snapshot. I'll just put Windows 7 base system and we'll click OK. I'll just close that console window, and it's in progress at the moment, and it's now complete. So what we're going to do is jump back into our VMware View administrator console. So back here in the administrator console, we'll be clicking on pools and we'll be adding in our first pool. So let's click on add, and I'm going to be selecting an automated pool. So we'll click next, and it's going to be dedicated, and I will enable automatic assignment. So what that means is that when the user logs in, it will take a desktop from the pool of desktops, and that user will always be assigned to that desktop. It can be overridden manually by going in and unassigning the user, but for now we're going to be selecting these two and clicking next. Now, as I mentioned before, we'll be doing linked clones, so we'll be selecting Composer linked clones. We'll click next. Now for our pool ID, just name it Windows 7 pool, and our display name can be Windows 7 VDI, and you can type a description if you like. I'll just type in Windows 7 desktops, and we'll click next. Okay, we have a few settings that we can change here. So the general state we'll have enabled, obviously, otherwise we won't be able to use it. We don't have any server restrictions, and in the remote desktop power policy we have a few options in here. We can take no action, ensure desktop's always powered on, suspend or power off. So what I'll be doing is I will be selecting ensure the desktops are always powered on. That way when I do go to connect, I'm instantly into my desktop. I don't need to wait for it to power on, I don't need to wait for it to come out of suspend. It's going to go straight in and it'll be a matter of seconds. So we'll be selecting that. And auto log off, I'll select after 30, I will select after 30 minutes and allow the users to reset their desktops. I'll select that to yes. I don't have any problem with that in the lab. And after the user logs off, if you want the system to refresh your operating system, that means that do you want it to put it back to a state that it was when it first got composed. I'm gonna put never because I like to manually control that, but if you like you can select always or every so often or at a specific time. So I'll just select never. Our default display protocol will be PC over IP, and it will allow the users to choose their protocol. So the protocol can be PC over IP or RDP, as you can see here. Now we'll give the users the option to select a maximum of 2 monitors and display resolution of 1920 by 1200. The Adobe Flash settings, you can set the Adobe Flash quality to do not control, low, medium or high. So I'll put mine on do not control. And Adobe Flash throttling, you can have it set as disabled, conservative, moderate or aggressive. I'll just disable it for now because I'm in the lab. So I'll click next. So in these options, I'm going to be redirecting the Windows profile to a persistent disk, and we'll be giving that a drive letter of D, and also be redirecting the disposable files to a non-persistent disk and allocating 4 gig for that and 2 gig for the Windows profile. So I'll click Next. And we'll leave those two options ticked to enable provisioning, and we'll stop provisioning on an error. So we'll be using this naming convention, Win7 VDI. Now there's a few patterns that we can do. The pattern that I'm going to use is bracket n colon fixed equals 2. So it's actually going to append 2 digits after the Win7 VDI. So it'll be like Win7 VDI 01, 02, 03, and so on. Now the maximum number of desktops in my lab, I'll just have 2. I'll have 1 powered on at all times, and we'll provision all the desktops up front. So I'm going to click Next. Now here, what we're going to be doing is selecting the default image. So I'm going to click Browse, and browse here. This is going to talk to vCenter and pick out my image. So my image is Win7-base. So I'll click OK. And here is our base snapshot that we created earlier on. So I'll select that, and I just want to mention one thing here. You can have many different snapshots and recompose the desktops in between those snapshots. So for example, you can do an update, create a snapshot, recompose your virtual machines, and then find out later that something was not working. So you can actually go back to your previous snapshot, recompose again, all the user settings are saved, and you're all good to go. So we only have one base snapshot in this, so we'll just select that and we'll click OK. Now I'm going to be placing them in a folder, so I'm going to click Browse, and this is the folders in vCenter. So I'm just going to be placing them in virtual desktops, and I'll click OK. Now for the resource settings, I'll select the cluster that I want the virtual desktops to reside on. I've only got one cluster, it's called cluster. So I'll click OK. And what we can do is we can select a resource pool. And we're going to be placing our virtual desktops into the medium resource group that I've created in vCenter. So I'll click OK. Now let's select our data stores. So I'll click Browse. And what we want to do is we want to use different data stores for the OS disks and View Composer persistent disks. So let's tick that. And what we'll use, we'll select VDI users and VMware NFS. So the VDI users, we're going to be using that as our persistent disk, and the VMware 2-NFS, we are going to be using that as the OS disk. And the storage overcommit we'll select as conservative, but you can also select moderate or aggressive. Now let's click OK, and we'll click Next. Okay, to store our virtual desktops, we'll be storing them in Active Directory in an organizational unit. So if I click on Browse, okay, I'm going to be storing it in the OU called Virtual Desktops. And in that OU, you can apply group policies and do what you like specifically to the virtual desktops. So we'll click OK. And we'll use Quick Prep, which is similar to SysPrep, to prepare our virtual machines and our link clones. You can also use a customized SysPrep if you like as well. And we will click Next. And so just summarize all your settings that we've already entered in here. And I seem to be quite happy with all this, so I'm going to click Finish, and the composing will begin. So View will talk to the composer, which is installed on vCenter, and when this screen disappears, I'll jump over to vCenter and I'll show you the tasks that have been initiated. Okay, so the window's gone, so let's go over to our vCenter server and let's have a look in recent tasks. We should see some tasks popping up soon. And there we go, our tasks are starting. And you can see that it's cloning the virtual machine, my Windows 7 base, which is just here. So I suspect that this is going to take quite a while running off my home computer. So what I'm going to do, I'll pause the video once again and we'll come back once this is all completed. Okay, so our VDIs have been provisioned. As you can see, all my tasks down here have been completed. So what we'll do is we'll just go over to our View server, and you can see that it is enabled. And if I click on desktops here, you can see that I've got 2 desktops ready, and actually the status is customizing. So it will be ready in a minute, but what we can do in the meantime is we can go into our pool and we can set an entitlement to say who can use this Windows 7 pool. So let's click on entitlement and let's click on add. So we'll search the entire directory. I just want to add a group in here, so I'm going to untick users, and the group that I created is called View Desktops. So I click find, and here it is here. So I'm going to select it and click OK. So now that means anybody in this View Desktops group is going to be able to use a Windows 7 desktop. So let's click OK there. And let's just check back on our desktops and see how they're going. Just click refresh. Okay, so they're still customizing, so I'll pause the video again and we'll be back once they're ready. While we're waiting for our desktops to provision, I just want to show you one thing. I'm running all this off my NetApp simulator, and it's all running off the VMware 2 volume, the one up the top here. What I've done is I've just run deduplication on the volume, and as you can see, there's a 59% saving running Windows 7 desktops all off the one volume and deduping it. So the space saved is not very big, 6.83 gig, but the percentage of 59% is huge. So I just wanted to point that out. If you do have a SAN with deduplication capabilities, it'd be a good thing to put all your VDIs off the one volume and dedupe it out of hours. Okay, so we're back again, and our desktops have provisioned successfully. So now it's time to go over to our Windows XP desktop, which is my simulated XP workstation. I guess I'm going to be simulating coming in from the internet, although these are all on the same network. So the first thing that I would do would be go to the web address of my View server. So I'm going to be typing in the internal name here, but if you are coming in from the internet, you would probably have this natted and also have a real-world DNS address. So I'm going to type this in and accept the certificate. Okay, and once it's loaded, I've got 2 options here. I can download the View client, or I can download the View client with local mode. So I'm just going to be downloading the View client, which is the 25 meg one. The View client with local mode actually allows you to pull the desktop out and use it offline. We don't have that set up in this lab, so I'm just going to be using the View client 25 meg version. So let me download that. And this is a really straightforward setup, so we'll just click next, next, accept the license agreement. Okay, so we've got some options here. Okay, so we're going to turn on USB redirection, and we'll turn on login as current user. This workstation is not on the domain that the View server is on. It's complete standalone. You can turn this on for a single sign-on type situation. But we'll turn on all the options and we'll click next. Now for the View connection server, we're going to type in the server name, which is server-view, and we'll click next. And we'll select show in connection dialog to give the option to log in as the current user. We'll click next. I'll create a shortcut on my desktop and click install. And the client installation is complete. So let's click on finish and we'll reboot the system. I'll pause the video again and we will come back shortly. Our Windows XP workstation has been now rebooted. So let's click on our View client and we'll be connecting to server View. I just want to show you some of the other options here. You can select a port. You can also select SSL or unselect it and just use standard HTTP. And you can auto connect when the server says, but when the workstation starts up. So let's click on connect and you'll get probably a certificate error like I did, and we'll just click on continue, and that's because I'm not trusting the certificate. So let me log in with administrator and my password, and that's the correct domain. Okay, and we've presented with our options for connecting to our desktops, our View 5 desktops. And so I've only got one pool there, and if you remember, we named that pool Windows 7 VDI. So if I click on this little down arrow here, I'm going to have a few different options. But here on Display Protocol, I can select PC over IP, or I can select Microsoft RDP. So we're going to be connecting via PC over IP, which is the default setting, so I'll leave that. And also on the display here, if I drop that down, we can connect it via a full screen, or we can use a multi-monitor. We can also select a Windows large, Windows small, and we can customize the size. So I'm just going to use the full screen for now, and let's click on connect. And there we have it. We've connected straight through to our Windows 7 virtual desktop. So that completes this tutorial, and thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to head over onto the website www.sysadmintutorials.com, and also check out the forums section for the latest news on the industry. Thank you very much again for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.